Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll masech the Sotah daf Yud Aleph. We are going to begin on the bottom of Yud Amud Beis, the second line from the bottom. Regarding Avshalom Lokach, regarding Avshalom, who was the son of David, who took V'yatzev lo b'chayev, and he erected this in his lifetime. Now, my lokach, what exactly does it take? So, mekach ra latzmai. It means that he took a bad acquisition for himself. In other words, he wanted to become king, as Rashi says. V'hachi kamer krav avshalom lokach lo es hamatzeva hazos b'chayev. He took literally this monument. V'yatzev lo es matzeves asher be'emek hamelach. Es matzeves asher be'emek hamelach v'gaimer. So what is this? This is referring to the deep level of advice. Says Rashi Shel Kadosh Baruch Hu of Hashem Shehu Melech Olam Shegazo David Cain b'Masa Basheva. So because of what happened with David and Bathsheba, in which he knew that David would be punished, so he considered that perhaps as an ability for him to be able to take over the Malchus. As we continue to Aleph Amud Aleph, the Chsiv, as the pasuk says in Shmuel Beis, there will be something evil that will come from your house. Similarly, so look at Rashi. So that's what it means. This was the Eitzah v'kaima matzevas davar shel Kadosh Baruch Hu. He basically heard from Hashem that it must be that I'm the one that's supposed to end up taking over the position. Similarly, in Sefer Bereshis, when Yaakov was sent Yosef, it says Yishlachehu me'ebe Chevron, that he basically sent him again to this place. Says Rashi, b'Yosef mishtoikra. This pasuk is referring to Yosef. Kishishalcha Yaakov etzel echav, that when Yaakov sent him to his brothers, v'utechilas sibas yiridas Yisrael Mitzrayim. This was the beginning of the downfall in which the Bnei Yisrael ultimately ended up going to Mitzrayim because of the Mechiras Yosef. To Amr Rav Chanina bar Papa be'etza amuka shel oisot tzadik. This is referring to the Eitzah of this tzaddik shekavar b'Chevron, who was buried in Chevron, namely Avraham. Dechsev yodea teda ki geryeh zaracha. I know that your children will end up being strangers. In other words, because Avraham was punished for basically the question of saying, how will I know? B'ma'ida. So there's different reasons why there was Mechiras Yosef, or why we were enslaved, but it was based on what happened with Avraham during that time, that his descendants ended up being punished. Ki Omer Ein Li Bain. The pasuk says, Shmuel Beis, that he says Ein Li Bain, I don't have a son. V'lo havi lo b'nei, and it is not to me a child. So again, this is referring to Avshalom. So what does that mean? We know that Avshalom did have children. He had 3 sons and a daughter. So what does it mean that v'lo havilei b'nei, that he didn't have children? So Rav Yitzchak bar Abdi mishloi hayuloi bein hogun l'malchus. Doesn't mean that he didn't have kids, but it means that there weren't any kids that were fit to become melech. Rav Chisda Eimer Gemiri, we have a tradition, kol hasayref tivuasa shel chavero. Anyone who literally burns the grains of his friend, ein maniach bein liyarshav, that his children will not be able to inherit him. Yehu kalei lidyoyav, and we know that one of the things that Avshalom did is he burned the grain of Yoav. Dechsev v'yamer el avadav re'u chelkas Yoav el yadi v'loi sham sa'irim. There's barley there. L'chu, go v'hatzisuha ba'esh, and burn with fire. V'yasisu abdi Avshalom es hachelka ba'esh. And they were instructed to do so based on Avshalom's word, and that's precisely what they did. And therefore, because he didn't show proper respect for grain, which is the sustenance for people, so therefore his children will not be able to be zoicha, to be able to take care of people either, because the father himself also didn't have that skill set to be able to be thoughtful of others. So our Mishnah said that just like Hashem punishes Mida Keneged Mida, we can also be rewarded in a similar fashion, just like we find by Miriam, that she waited to see what would happen to her brother Moshe. when he was put into the water, and because of that, the Bnei Yisrael waited for her when she had saras. When it came to her waiting for her brother, it was only for a moment just to see what happened. However, when it came to the Bnei Yisrael, we waited 7 days, because the saras is for 7 days, the pasuk says. So Rabbi actually say it's not the case, because when it comes to a inyan taiva, actually we will get even greater reward. It says yes, that you will receive a similar type of reward. However, it will be bigger. So it'll be similar in that they waited, but the waiting will be longer, because the sechar is going to be greater than that which you did. So Miriam waited from afar. This is all alluding to the Shechina. When it says the Tisasav Dechsev, Hashem Yisasev, the Gomer. So when you say Hashem is alluded to this word. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, which is referring to, it says Rashi, she ate HaKadosh Baruch Hu, umepiv, shnemer ki Hashem yitin chachma bepiv, das usfuna. Merachik, dechsev, merachik Hashem nearly. From far away Hashem sees me. Ladas, dechsev, ki kel deus Hashem. So all these words actually is Hashem actually also overseeing to make sure that Moshe was spared. Ma dechsev, ma Hashem elkecha shoyel mimach. What does Hashem ask for us? Ye'aseh, you should do. Dechsev, ki lo ya'aseh Hashem elokim davar loy. Davar. Lo, dechsev, yikar lo Hashem shalom. So again, ladas, we see that ki kel deus Hashem, ma dechsev ma Hashem elkecha shalom imach, ye'aseh dechsev ki lo ya'aseh Hashem elokim davar lo dechsev yikar lo Hashem shalom. So all of those words in the pasuk actually are alluding to Hashem, to the Shechina. V'yakim el chadash v'gaimer. So this is a Gemara also in Erevin, and it's also quoted in the beginning of in the beginning of Parsha Shmos. Rabbi Shmuel Chada Mer Chadash Mamash Chada Mishes Chashel Gezerah Isav. Either it was really a new king, or that his decrees seemed anew. Mandi Mer Chadash Mamash Eksiv Chadash. He was new. Mandi Mer Mishes Chashel Gezerah Isav Shalok Siv Yamos V'Yamach. It doesn't say he died. Asher Lo Yadas Yosef Dehavi Dame Commando Yada Leklal. Even though he was really the same king, this is the whole element. Pesach and Haggadah is all about Hakaras HaTayv. So the starting point of Melech Mitzrayim are those who are Kafoi Tayv. Total Kafoi Tayv. So, and that's what we see. He didn't care about what was done. So that was really the battle. The whole battle of the Abdus L'Cheirus of Bnei Yisrael to Mitzrayim is Hakaras HaTov versus being Kafoi Tov. Okay. Commando Yodele Kalal. V'yarmer el Amoy hinim Amem Yisrael. So Tana hu hiskil be'etza tchila. So he began with an etza lafika chalaka tchila. So therefore he was taken first. Hu hiskil be'etza tchila dechsev v'yarmer el Amo Paro said to his nation, Lafikach Lokat Chila, so he was hit first. No, he was hit first. In you, in your nation, and all of your servants. So first it says you. What does it mean that we should do wisdom? We should be wise to him. It should be to them. So he was referring to God. He wanted to wage war against God. Why? Nidunim. He was trying to figure out how should he destroy the Klal Yisrael, because we know everything is mida keneged mida. So nidunim be'esh, if we kill them out with fire, ksiv kini Hashem be'esh yavoy, ksiv kini be'esh Hashem nishpat v'goymer. Don't want to do that. Hashem will punish us with fire. B'cherev, if we kill them with a sword, ksiv v'charbo es kol b'asar. Asher boy. So nidainim and unadunim instead of b'mayim. Shekvar nishma Kadosh Baruch Hashem maybe mobile oilam shemekim nach zeis libe geimer. The Hanani Yoidim shall kolam kula enumevi avalal uma achas umevi. So he said, you know what? We're gonna destroy them with water. We'll throw the Moshe Israel into water, and that's how he'll die. And of course, it was also understood that Moshe would die with water because he hit the rock with water coming out. So there was a metzias to Moshe's survival, and everything connected to him is with water. So nonetheless, they said, well, Hashem has to punish us mida keneged mida. That's only fair. He's not going to give us a more harsh or weaker punishment. It's got to be exact. But the problem is, he's already promised that he can't destroy the world with water. So since he can't destroy us with water, so then we can kill him with water. We have nothing to worry about as far as retribution. However, the mistake was, Hashem always said he won't destroy the world. However, one nation, which he did destroy, which when he went to the Yam Suf, fine, which is also the pshat why he felt confident to go into the Kriyas Yam Suf. Because it makes really no sense. Why would he think to go into the Yam Suf when he knows he's going to drown? The answer is he didn't think he was going to drown because Hashem was not able to punish him with water because Hashem already promised that the world won't be destroyed with water. He was only a nation. That's part of his narcissistic view that he considered himself like the world. Or maybe he won't bring it, but they'll go into it and they'll fall into it, which is an unbelievable sentence, which means Hashem's not going to destroy the world, but that doesn't mean we can't destroy the world. Hashem's will maybe just allow things to take its course, and therefore we have to be still careful. The Mitzrayim ran toward it. This matter in which was plotted against them. Basically, the dish in which they cooked. So basically, they made their own bed, if you will. So because they went into it, that's what it was. Fine. My mashma the high zodu lishna dikderu. How do we know the language zodu, which is plotting, has nothing to do with cooking food? We know that Yaakov was making this porridge for his father who was sitting shiva for his grandfather, for Abraham who died. Famous Gemara. There was 3 people that were part of the Eitzah of what to do with the Jews. Bilam, V'iyuv, V'yisro. So Bilam, Shiyatz, Nera. Bilam, who basically agreed and gave advice that we should punish and kill and enslave. So he was killed. Iyuv, Sheshasak. Iyuv was quiet, so needed to be Yisurin. So he was punished with Yisurin, which is also something which happens to you privately. So you don't speak out, you keep everything to yourself, so the pain is something which you feel yourself. Yisro Shabayrach, Yisro ran away, Zahu Mibnei Banav Sheesh B'lishkas HaGazes. He was Zaycha that he will have children that will sit in the Sanhedrin. Shnemar, Umishbachai Seifrim Yoshve Yabetz Tirasim Shimosim Sukosim Hema Hakinim Haboyim Mechamas Avi Beis Rechev. It says these are the Kinim who say when they Kini Chaysin Moshe V'Goymer. So know that one of the names of Yisro was Kini, so therefore that's the proof. Says Rashi, Tar Item Mafarish B'Sifri Shishamu Terua Bahar Sinai. It's referring to those who heard the Terua, the sounds of the shofar. Lashon Acher Teratim Al Shem Shahaya Yoshim B'Shar Yishlaim. They were sitting in the gates. Shemosim Shishamu Mitzvos Avihem. They heard the mitzvahs of Hashem. The Haim Hayu B'Bnei Banav Shel Yisro. These are the grandchildren of Yisro. Sukosim, Rashi says, as Al Shem Shahayu Yoshim Sukais. They sat in booths. V'Karelu Mishpachas Seifrim Dahainu Sanhedrin. They were called Seifrim scholars, which are part of the Sanhedrin. Okay, let's look at question 11. Mi zacha shebnei banav yashav lishkas hagazes ma zacha lekach Yisro zacha lekach neishabarach ha'etza dahavan eschachmalai. So because he ran away, so therefore he was given this reward. Question TB22. Just ask you the 3 names. So it's just Yisro, Bilam, and Eve. Okay. Of course, this is according to the opinion. It's more Baba Basra. In which generation did Yisrael live? V'nilcham, so the pasuk says, "V'nilcham banu v'omen aretz v'alinu miboyle." It should say the v'alinu, which is referring to the Mitzrayim. So Rav Abba Bar Kahana ka'adim shemekalel al as atzmai v'tayil kilasai b'chavero. It's someone who curses his friend and hangs his curse on his friend, on the others. He curses himself and he's tayil the kol on others. Yasim alav sari misim aleihim miboyle. Again, it's all the Bnei Israel that are going to be subjugated and enslaved. So Tana de Rebbe Lezer, Krav Shimon, Melamid sheheviu milabin v'tolu paro b'tzavarai. That they took this, Rashi's kamin defus shabo eisin halvenim, this form to make bricks, and they put it actually in Paro's neck. Paro himself, the king. B'chol echad ve'echad miYisrael she'amar lehem istinisani. Anyone who says, "Oh, I'm too dainty to do this job," Amulakum istinisatu yosim Paro. Look at Paro; he's doing it. So if the king is doing it, he's setting a good example. No matter how much of an istinis Paro is, he's still working. So come on and join us. So if the king is joining, you should also join. So everyone started working. Sorry, misim, taskmasters. Davar shemesim levenim. Those who were involved in the forming of bricks. Umana noisa b'sivoisam, a noisam miboile. Again, it shouldn't say a noso, so it's a noisam. Umana noisa l'paro b'sivoisam Israel, because of the afflictions of Paro and the hard work of Israel. Even are miskanos of Paro, Rabbi Shmuel Chadaimer. What are these cities? One is, why is it miskanos? Shemesakanais es balehem, because it caused them danger. This was long before any OSHA or health violations could be filed, so it was sakana building. That literally it makes those workers become poor. Says Rashi, "She'ali oisim ha'arim v'oiso avoda nistaknu mitzrayim lit." Okay, I'm fine. He made them poor. The Yom call Isaac Babinyan mismaskein. It's interesting. Anyone who builds becomes poor. That's the Rashi Medaldos, because when it comes to building, as we know, it's like, oh yeah, how much is it going to cost? It costs $30,000. The reality is that once you knock down the roof, you see all the rotten boards, you have all these things you have to fix, so it all of a sudden becomes a lot more money. As Pitam, as Ramses, Rabbi Shmuel Chadaimer, Pitam Shma, that's his name, Ramses, Rishain Miss Rises, because each one kept crumbling down. Chadaimer Ramses Shma, Umanik Shma, Pitam, Rishain, Pitachaim, Beloy, that it swallowed up. The Kashiyano Aiso King Yirba V'Chen Yifrites, King Rabu V'Chen Partzim Beboile. So Amir Shlakish really mean that they had more kids. So Amir Shlakish Ruach HaKodesh Mevasartan King Yirba V'Chen Yifrites. Says Rashi, there was a Ruach HaKodesh that was given to the Israel. Yirma Mitzrayim Ein Moyel Lechem. There's no benefit in what you're doing. King Yirba Tami V'Chen Yifrites, because they're going to constantly keep having kids. The Yakutzim Ibn Israel, they were like thorns. They were like thorns in their eyes. It says Rashi, Kilu Einehem V'Gufan Malem Kaitzim. When they saw the success of a Jew, it bothered them so much that it was like being physically stuck with thorns. So even though there was nothing wrong with their lives, but the fact that they saw another person in having a good life, that bothered them, which obviously that's a terrible danger. If you have people that they're so focused on another person that they can't even enjoy their own life, so it doesn't matter how good their life is. If they're constantly focused on what someone else has, and therefore when someone has something good, it hurts them, that becomes more of a problem. That's how it was in Mitzrayim, because they were unappreciative of what they had, and they only thought of what other people had. The Avinu Mitzrayim es Bnei Israel, Bifarach, as we continued Aleph Amud Beis, we know that they worked extremely hard. So Rabbi Lezer Omer actually is Beperach, famous Gemara, that literally they use soft language And not only that, Rashi said they paid them for their work originally. Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani Omer bifricha. Rashi says b'shibaring guf u'mostayim v'chazaka. Actually means back-breaking labor. The Amaris chayehem b'abodakasha b'chamil veinim v'goymer. So they made it less bitter. Of course, that's why we moror on Pesach. Omer Rava batchila b'chaymer v'veinim. Originally with mortar and brick. And eventually all the work in the field. So it wasn't just building houses or building pyramids or whatever it was, but then eventually they had them work even in the fields. So why is it again say befarech? So Omer Reb Shmuel bar Nachmani Omer Rabbi Yonasan shahayu machlifin meleches hanoshim lanoshim meleches nashim la'anoshim. So it was not just work, but it was work in a way which made them feel not accomplished. It was not done in a way to have a more efficient economy. They had men doing women's work, women doing men's work, because it wasn't so much about them working, it was to break their very spirits. And some explain that's the word karpas. Karpas backwards is samech perach, that there was 60 myriad Jews that were working perach, hard labor. So the question is, so it should be called safrach. Why is it called karpas? It was written backwards. So my Rosh Rabbi Zweig explains, Pasha, based on this Gemara, that because they were machlif, the work, the men did women's work, women did men's work, so everyone was doing the opposite, the backwards amount of work that they were supposed to do. That was part of the perach. Part of the hard work was not just working, because you could work hard but then feel accomplished after you've worked. But if you're doing things that you know is really not your skill set, and someone else could do a better job doing what you're doing, and vice versa, it breaks the spirit. Omandi oimer nami hosem beperach. So according to the one who said it's, again, they spoke softly, and it made them feel good at first, until finally they made it hard for them once they were stuck. Hachavadi befricha. There's no question, we could also say it was backbreaking work. Darish Rav Avira. B'schar nashim sidkaniyos shahayu ba'oso hador nigolu yisom mitzrayim. Women are second-class citizens. That whoever says that is just total sheker. It's an absolute lie. Women are the ones that have always sustained Klal Yisrael from generation to generation. And if it wasn't for the women, then there would be no Klal Yisrael. Not just about having kids, but them being the actual backbone and the support system to make sure that the next generation can possibly endure is the women. And it's a Beferish Gemara right here. The Gemara says that the reason why we were redeemed from Mitzrayim was because of the women. It was because of the schar nashim sidkaniyos. B'shasha halchos l'shomayim. When they went to draw water, Kodesh Baruch Hu mezaman lahem dogim katanim b'kadehem. They had these little fish that popped up into these buckets. V'shoavos mechsamayim mechsadogim. And they would draw basically half water and half fish. Uvois b'shoiv sois shtei kederos. And they would basically have these two pots, achashol cham and achashol dogim, one for hot water and one for fish. Umalichos eitzel balen, they would go to their husbands, l'sada, umarchitzos oisan, and they would wash with this water. L'sakois oisan, they would be anointed. Umachilos oisan, mashkois oisan, they would be able to eat and drink. V'nis kakois lehen bein sofosayim, and they would end up having literally tashmish with one another between the boundaries. So because the husband, says Rashi, bein mitzare hatzadais, become a snuin meitzar gvul hasada. So in these modest little areas, that's where they were intimate with one another. So the wives made sure that their husbands had food, water, they had all the things that they needed, and also availed to them intimacy even under the most difficult of situations. Shenemar, how do we see this? The pasuk says in Tehillim, "Im tishkavun bein shavatayim," v'goymer, which is referring to this incident. B'schar tishkavun bein shavatayim, since they had tashmish in this area, Zoch Yisrael lebizas Mitzrayim. So we're zeicha to leave Mitzrayim, and also to be able to take the wealth. Shenemer kanfe yoina nechba b'kesef, that under the wings of the dove is covered with silver. Ve'evroseha b'yarkrak charutz. Kivan shemis abrois. So once they got pregnant, boyisel batem, they went to their homes. Kivan shemagiyazman moyladehen, when it came time to give birth, hochas v'yoldos besada tachas atapuach. They would go underneath a apple tree, and they would give birth. Shnemer tachas hatapuach or articha. Underneath the apple tree, I have awoken you, begoimer. So there's obviously a significance of an apple tree. Tapuach, we mentioned in Parshas Toldos, connected to the smell of Gan Eden. There's also Mastama. There's a reason why on Rosh Hashanah we take a tapuach. Tapuach somehow is connected to life, to the notion of life. Just like these women, they would go under this tree, this apple tree, to be able to give birth. So there's this notion, Rosh Hashanah, which is again the start of a new year. Fine. And Hashem sent from above those to be able to clean and to straighten out the limbs of Oisin Kachayazu Shimishaperes es Vlad. Just like wild animals would also care for the Vlad. Shnemar Moila Taich Bayoim Haledes Oisach Lo Koras Sharech. The cord was not cut, and B'mayim Luruchatst Lamishi, and the water you were not rinsed with. U'melakad lehen shnei igulin, and these are malachim that were caring for these children, and it says afterwards that they were prepared these cakes, shnei igulin, echad shel shemen ve'echad shel dvash, one of honey, one of oils. Shnemar, as the pasuk says, vayenikehu dvash mesela, that Hashem nursed them with honey from a rock, v'shemen, and oil, v'goymer. Kivan shemakir behen Mitzrayim. Now, eventually the Egyptians are catching on to this and seeing that there's babies being born and that they're being healthy and cared for. Boin l'harga, they want to kill these children. V'nas lahem nes, v'niv loyim b'karka. Literally, they vanished into the ground. Literally, it sounds like they were swallowed up into the ground, but it means they were able to be saved by being hidden. Umavian shvarim v'charshin al gabon. So all of a sudden, the Egyptians brought oxen to go to plow over there to basically kill any of the babies that may be hiding in these bushes. Shnemer al gabi charshu charshim v'goymer. So ach shahayachin, after they left, hayu mevatz b'tzin v'yoytzin case of a Sotah. Literally, they would sprout out like the grass in the field, which means they would come out of hiding, maybe. Shenemer revava ketsemach hasada nasatich. The kivan shemis gadlin. Once the kids grew up, boyin adarim, just like flocks, they went labateim, back to their proper homes. Shnemer v'tirbim v'tigdali v'tavoi ba'adi adayim. They went back with their ornaments. Aturki ba'adi adayim ella be'edrei adorim, like together like flocks going back to their home. And when Hashem redeemed us from the seas, these children, in which this whole nace took place, which they saw the Shekhinah at a very young age because of all these nisim that took place to them, they recognized Hashem first. They're able to say this first because they're the ones that had already recognized Kadosh Baruch Hu from before. So he said, you know what? We have to kill these children. So he went to the midwives. So it was a machlokas who they were. Rav u'shmochad aimer ish ubita. One says it was a mother and her daughter. V'chad aimer kal v'chamoisa, mother and a daughter-in-law. Mad aimer ish ubita Yocheved and Miriam. Yocheved and Miriam were the midwives, which is question 12. Mandi aimer kal v'chamoisa is Yocheved v'Elisheva, because Elisheva was the wife of Aharon. And again, Yocheved and Amram had Moshe, Aharon, and Miriam. Therefore, Elisheva was the daughter-in-law of Yocheved. Tanya command Yom Ishu Bita the Sanya Shifra zu Yocheved. Lovadek Rishma Shifra Shemish Peres es Vlad. So this is brought down in Rashi in Chumash. Is stretched out the limbs of the child for health purposes. Dabaracher Shifra Shapara V'Rabu Yisrael B'Yameha. that they were fruitful, multiply in her days because of her. Pua Zumiriam Shema Pua Shahaisa Poha Moitzias Avlad. So basically, she would take care of this child when they were giving birth. She was the one that was involved in that. Davaracha Pua Shaisa Pua Baruach HaKodesh, that she was screaming in divine Ruach HaKodesh Vameris Asidat Imi Shetelid Bain. Eventually, I will have from my mother, rather, will come forth a child, Shemoshi Israel. In other words, she already knew, Pua, she screamed out Baruch HaKodesh, she knew that her mother would end up having a child, because of course Miriam was older than Moshe by 6 years, which is again hard to understand. I mean, she was really young when she was doing this, but obviously ages are different. Question 12. Mehem Shemos Hanosafim Sheish La Miriam B'Tanach. Okay, so we didn't see all of these. What are Miriam's many names? So one so far we said is Pua. Okay, all right. TA21. Mi Hayu Hamayaldais. So it's either Yocheved and Yocheved and Elishava, or Yocheved and Miriam. TB 23. Asher Haim Ha'acha Shifra V'Shem Shes Pua. V'Yaslahem Batim Mizo Shifra Mizos Pua. So we said that. Umi Haim Habatim. So that we did not yet see. We'll get to that. Okay, what was the reward? We'll see. So my avonim. So what does that mean? Of Naim, on like the stone. Simon Gadol Masalahem. Paro gave a great simon. Armelhem Bashar Shikaras Leilid. When a woman bends down on her knees on this birthing stone, Mistananos Kavanim. Her thighs will be cool like stones. These the armor could accept the arid base hayoitzer, the hini who oisam alacha al havanim. My yoitzer zeh, just like a storage house. Yoreach mikan v'yoreach mikan v'tzaden be'emsa. So you have a stone on this side, a stone on that side, and you have a piece of wood or clay opposite the kli. Af isha yarach mikan v'yavolid be'emsa v'avlad be'emsa. So to a woman, she has her thighs on both sides and the vlad's in the middle. Im bein hu v'amitenoto. If it's a boy, kill him. Amar chanina sim gadol masolhen. Bein panav l'mata. When it comes to a child, his face is l'mata. Bas paneha l'mala. When a girl, her face is forward, which obviously is not nowadays, but that's what it was. Why? So it's unbelievable. It says over here, Rashi, Kederch Tashmishay, Kederch Tashmishaha, that just like during Tashmish, a woman, her face is up because the man is on top and the woman is on the bottom, so his face is facing down, her face is facing up. So that's how children are born also, at least that's how it was. The Tirenda Hayamialdo says, Okim will also Kasher Dibra Lehem Goimer, Lehen Miboile. Rav Yosef Rav Chanin Malamed, Shitavan Ledvar Vera, that Paro desired to do an Avera of Bia, V'lo Nispu. So that's what it means. It says that Terena Hamildas Azokim, V'lo also Kasher Dibra Lehen, they didn't do as he wanted. So again, it has to do with Bia, that he actually wanted to be intimate with them. But Techianas Yaldim, and they allowed the children to survive. Tana lo dayin shel hamisu oisan. It's not enough that you killed them. El shahayu maspiko isahem mayim amazon. They also provided food for them and water, drink. The tomar na miyaldas el paru kilo kanashim v'gaimer. He said, we couldn't help it. They're not like normal people. My chayos. Ile machayos mamish, wild animals, atu what? Chayim milu sricha chaya. Does it need to live? Chayachriti oluda. El amru umazu kachayim nimshul Yehuda. We see that their mamish are just like the wild animals that they do not need to give birth. It's not that they're like maidservants, because they also need someone to take care of them. But we're talking about they're like wild animals. For example, Yehuda, Gur Aryeh, Dan Yehid, Dan is Yehid, Dan Nachash, Naftala Iyala. So we find that all the different animals, all the animals, all the children are compared to animals. Yehuda was a lion, Dan is a snake, Yisachar Chamar Garem. Yisachar is a donkey. Yosef Bechor Shor. He's like an ox. Binyamin Zev Yitro. Binyamin's like a fox. Ksibbe Udalok Ksibbe Ma Imchal Levia Ben Arayas Ravatza. Just like the mother and its lioness is together with its lions as it crouches. So one of the most unbelievable points is that what a silly point, like Paro believed that? How could Paro believe that? Doesn't make any sense. The answer is, how is it shaykh that you could tell someone to kill innocent little babies? You have to be out of your mind. How can you kill innocent people? How is genocide acceptable? How can a person live with themselves? And the answer is because they do not consider the people that they're killing to be on the same level as them. They consider them to be like animals. So therefore, what they were saying was, listen, they're just like chayos. So he was like, you know what? She must be right. She must be right. They are like animals. There's just the justification that I have to be able to kill them. Rabbi Shmuel Chada Emer Bate Kahuna. Olavia. This was the question we had before. What were they zaycha? To Bate Kahuna Olavia. Chada Emer Bate Malchus. That they're going to have descendants of kings. Madam Bate Kahuna Olavia Arna Moshe. Arna Moshe came from them. Madam Bate Malchus David Nami Miriam Kaasi. So Bate Malchus David Nami Miriam Kaasi. David Hamelach came from Miriam. Dechsiva Thomas Azuva Ashes Kalev. It says that Azuva died, who was the wife of Kalev. Vayikach lo Kalev es Ephras v'teilado es Chur. Dechsiva David ben Ish Ephrasti v'goymer. So this is actually, if you go to Rashi, Alma Ephras Kari Miriam. One of the names she had was Ephras as well as Azuva. So we're going to end up seeing a bunch of her names, but Miriam ended up being the descendant, being the mother eventually of David Hamelach. So therefore this was the reward. Adkan.